Good morning, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome. Good morning, good afternoon. Where are we? What time is it? It's day 3 of Lancashire Innovation Festival, and I hope you've been having just a fabulous time so far. I've certainly learned so much in the talks, the discussions, the seminars have been absolutely fabulous. Here we are today. We've always had this ambition to be able to move right around the county and showcase different places, different venues. And I'm really pleased that today we're here at just a fabulous location, Blackburn Youth Zone. And the theme of the day is social innovation. The Youth Zone is just a fantastic space, leading the way in providing services for young people, 5 to 12-year-olds, loads of great stuff, state-of-the-art, building, lots of activities going on for kids in and around the Blackburn area. And of course, innovation, making sure that we're supporting young people to be able to innovate is a key theme for today and will be a key idea for the county moving forward. So really pleased to be here in Blackburn at this fantastic space and looking forward to some great talks, some great discussions later on today. We've got coming up a session hosted by Gaynor Dykes, who is a member of the LEPS Innovation Board, who'll be talking about financing innovation later on. Kerry Harrison from this Skills Hub, Lancashire Skills Hub, is talking about skills for innovation. And then we close the day with a session that will be chaired by Richard Slater from LBV and a panel of Tony Attard and Ed Matthews-Gentle discussing Lancashire's rich innovation history. As I say, we're here today, and as we mentioned already, the theme is social innovation. And it was a theme that came out in spades last year, in something that people felt like Lancashire should really be leading the way on. And I'm sure you'll agree that across the county, we have some incredible people who are doing some fantastic innovation in all sorts of social ways and making sure grassroots innovation is really profound and bumbling away and lots of other areas of innovation and helping people really get started from the ground up. So I'm dead pleased to be able to kick off this session today with a story that I think has really captured the region across the last 12 months. A story that really, for me, came to prominence at the start of the pandemic and has really just gone from strength to strength. So I'm dead pleased to be able to bring today Dave Scholes, who is the founder of Mindsight Connect and the Roast and Toast. And I'm really looking forward to be able to have a little bit of a conversation. Slight change from what we've advertised, but nonetheless, we're going to have a great chat. If you're in the audience today, if you're in the Zoom, please do fire the questions in. Use the chat, let us know. The questions will be brought to us and we'll get through them all. But we're going to have a chat and I hope you enjoy it. So, Dave.
How you doing?
Fab to see you. Great to see you. Thanks for coming. And just kick us off. Just give us to start with, I think, we use the term social innovation, and last 12 months, I think you've been a real leader of that. Just give us a quick overview of what you've been doing and how what you've been doing has kind of come to prominence.
Yeah, absolutely. So my story starts quite personally, really. I had a creative design business, so I was always in the world of being a little bit innovative from that point of view. Did a lot of marketing, all those kind of things. And I was working in the charitable sector, so again, very social in terms of where we were pitched. But my personal story, I lost my best pal to suicide 10 years ago. And as you expect, it knocked me absolutely sideways. Dealing with that personally and that kind of mental health journey, that social journey for me, alongside some of the charitable stuff I was doing and supporting other people, really led me towards this space of going, do you know what, there's actually some, I guess, education and some help from my own personal journey of getting some professional care and having mates who stuck an arm round and kind of looked after me going through some stuff, but also benefiting other people in the midst of me going through what I was going through. I thought actually this well-being mental health space that is so vast, there's this kind of chasm in the middle of something, I guess, down from the counselling and the professional support And up from, you know, the campaigns, Ask Your Mate Twice and all that kind of stuff, there's this bit in the middle that's around real genuine people actually feeling more confident to have conversations with the mates, with family, with colleagues and all that kind of stuff that just wasn't happening. You know, we've seen all the stats are flying through, you know, through the roof. It doesn't seem to be getting much better. And I thought, I wonder whether there's something that we can do that's different to what's already out there to maybe capitalise on the things that I'd gone through personally. So I thought, if a lad from Burnley can deal with some of this stuff, can learn some stuff to look after himself, then probably anybody can do this. They just need some help being pointed in the right direction. So that's kind of where Mindsight came from 18 months ago. We set up as a social enterprise, so that was a handy clue in the title. And the idea was very much to go into the workspace and the charitable sector, into education, and really deliver this culture change approach to getting people conversing around mental health at a preventative stage, rather than veering towards crisis. And that's what we wanted to do. 2 weeks after launching the business, global pandemic hits. We can't do any of the things that we've spent the last 6 months building up to, which is where the roast and toast thing that we're talking about today kind of developed from, really.
I'm going to come on to that in a bit more detail, because I mean, roast and toast, I'm sure many people are tuning in, many people across Lancashire have seen roast and toast, and I've been on the sessions, just found it fantastic and really interesting. So I'm going to ask you a little bit more about that as we go on through the session. But I suppose where I want to start is, we had a chat, and you were saying about doing some, you know, your career kind of, obviously the tragedy, as you said, of your best friend, and your career started in marketing and working with charities.
Yeah.
Tell me about that. What was that like? What, working with charities? What did you learn? How did that help as you started that journey?
It was a really interesting one, and it worked extremely well for me. I kind of fell out with the creative industry. I fell out with the creative industry, I guess, because my role, I'm not a creative, I'm not the designer. I was the person that sat in the middle, I guess, of the tech or the creative at the top end that might talk about coding and all these confusing things for people. And I sat in between them and the client, and knew a little bit less than them and a little bit more than them, and kind of brought this thing together to bring to life what the passion was that the person was trying to get across, in whether it was print publication or whether it was digital publication. And I just loved the people bit. But it then became less about people and more about, you know, can you get me the same prices as, and it just wasn't my thing. And at the time, a friend of mine had started a charity, and as many people do, have brought some brilliantly social people together, got some funding and started on some projects, and hadn't thought anything about marketing or developing. And I got the opportunity to get back into something that I loved, which was being around people and creating those projects for people, whilst at the same time was doing a little bit of volunteer work with a charity called Street Soccer Academy, that was working with vulnerable men, basically. So it's prison release, it was recovering addicts, it was homelessness, and ended up with this really strange world of delivering crisis support, a personal development program for clients, and the marketing of some quite decent sized charitable organisations.
When was this?
So that was, I mean, I started doing that about 15 years ago.
So we're probably talking about a time when, especially for men, mental health probably still wasn't on the agenda.
Not at all. And that was the really interesting thing for me in my own personal journey. You know, at the point where I lost Ian, I knew very, very little about mental health. It had just started to come into the conversations in and around some of the guys that we were supporting. And my naivety at the time was, the expectation was, from a mental health point of view, you know, if you're out on the streets, you're probably going to struggle with mental health. If you've got an addiction issue, you're probably going to struggle with mental health. If you've got a prison release background, you're probably going to struggle with mental health. And what I realised in working with the lads that I was working with, that some of the issues that were at the forefront actually related back to things that had taken place in childhood or the journey that they'd been on. And as we progressed with this project, the stereotype of the people that were coming through our doors started to change from the people, I guess, that society expects to struggle to people that were in the education profession. As I went through this in 10 years, I actually worked with 3 lads that I went to school with. And our journeys had just gone on different paths.
Yeah.
And some of these guys were coming out of really great jobs. And some of the things that had brought them into our world weren't the catastrophic crisis you would expect, but it was changing relationship circumstances, changing employment circumstances. And as I was going through my stuff, the demographic of what I personally thought was crisis management started to widen. And this became about anybody. This wasn't just somebody in a tough place that might have some mental health stuff going on. This was something that affected everybody, because life affects everybody. And some of the things, the catalysts were actually, you know, they were positive things. People started struggling because of house moves, and they were struggling a little bit more because of children coming into the world and all this kind of stuff that was just part of life, but actually for some people was just the thing that they needed to deal with most.
Did you feel like in that, I mean, so I guess we're probably talking around sort of 2005, around that time. So as you kind of started doing that work, do you feel like there was a tipping point? Was there something that happening maybe in the wider world? Was there something that, why did people kind of get more sort of open about these things, you think?
I think as it developed, probably, you know, from probably 2005 to 10 and moving forward, I think the campaign element started to come in. I think people talking about, you know, all these organisations that were coming in that were really encouraging people to talk around mental health. I think people did start to be more open around the conversation. I think where my concern came was that people were more open about the conversation, but they didn't know what to do with it once the conversation had started. And I think that, you know, I'd seen quite a lot of businesses did a lot of research as we were developing this thing, where people had brought in workplace well-being, and all of a sudden there were 100 people in a workforce talking about mental health, but there was no structure in the business to manage that. And actually it was causing more harm than good. It wasn't the fault of the individuals that were now talking about it. That was a brilliant thing. It was just that the environment and the culture wasn't designed to deal with it. And again, we took some learning from that. Went, do you know what? There can't be such a thing as workplace well-being, because people go home, don't they? They go home at 5 o'clock. They've got families, they've got friends. And actually, some of the stuff that I'd struggled with from a mental health point of view that had affected my work was nothing to do with work at all. And I thought, again, that's happening to me. That's probably happening to a lot of people. And in the same way that some of this stuff could come into your world outside of work, actually it could also be supported and helped outside of work as well. This had to be a holistic model where everybody's journey was different.
I suppose for a lot of people, isn't it? There's this, you know, everyone would like to think that we're all, you know, as mates, or as, you know, we're all, you know, I'm a great listener. I like to think I'm a, you know, and we all probably think, I'm great with my friends, but actually probably, but some of us probably pretty terrible at it, you know, and we like to think we are,
and it's tough. These conversations are tough. You know, the amount of people I've spoken to over the last 18 months as we've done this, they've kind of done this nodding agreement and gone, you know, such and such in my workplace, they've just recently lost somebody, or such and such has gone through this. I don't know what to say. I don't know where to start. And often we've found that if we can help people to start the conversation and give them a few tools for the toolkit to look after themselves and to add a little bit of knowledge. What we're saying in here is, you know, I'm not an expert, I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a counsellor, I'm none of those things. And I've done a few courses, anything that's accessible to people. What we're saying is, look, you don't need to be the expert to help. Yes, we need to know where the experts are. Yes, we need to know where our support switches on and professional support, you know, turns up and all those kind of things. But actually sometimes the balance of professional support and just being an arm round and somebody knowing that you're there without having to feel like you're the fixer, those two things are really strong. They're an enhancement to somebody's support. And often people just need to unpack some stuff. They just need to get some stuff off the chest and know that somebody else cares. And it's quite simple in the great grand scheme of things, but if it was happening, there'd probably be a reduction in the statistics we've got. So it must still be quite hard for people to start this. I thought, right, how do we solve that? How do we help people to start a conversation?
And was this the kind of, or what were then, going from being this guy who's involved running a marketing agency, business, supporting charities, working with young guys particularly on issues of homelessness and mental health and recovering from crime. What were the sort of the steps, I guess, in the build up to, right, we're going to register this CIC? Yeah. What was that kind of process?
Yeah, so I'd got to the point of, I'd done some work with a lot of charities that were in the whole sphere of wellbeing and mental health, and we delivered some stuff as a collective. So I actually took the model from the creative business where I work with a lot of freelancers. So that was our model. I kind of managed it and brought in experts in their field, and that gave us a more powerful product. I thought, actually, that hands itself over brilliantly to what we're looking at from a health and wellbeing point of view. What if we could go into a business and start the conversation, but bring in the experts that particular business needed for the people within that business? And I really wanted to do something that covered everything from, some of the softer touch stuff that people will talk about, mindfulness and things like that. But I didn't want to skirt away from the crisis support. I thought if we don't do that, I'm not doing this the service it deserves. Yeah. If we save one life doing this, it's worth investing in. And we actually did a pilot with a company over in Manchester. And I brought 5 different organisations together with this concept of, I think this could work. And we worked within their team, and we worked primarily with 20 members of staff that were going to embed this stuff back into they were team leads basically. And we worked with them on a monthly basis, and we put a lot of this stuff in, and we worked with them. And we got to the end of the 12 months, and we were presenting this back to the guys that had commissioned this really on their behalf. And within that 12 months, as well as improving the one-to-ones and some of the return to work stuff and all these kind of things that we were in there to do, we actually did a session on suicide prevention. And 2 of the ladies within that particular group of 20 came across suicide attempts on their way home, walking home in central Manchester, and they talked people down from those situations. I was like, wow. And I presented that back to the 3 MDs at the end of this particular cohort of what we were doing. And I thought, I need to go big here. And I said, you as a business this year have saved 2 lives. And 2 of the guys went, wow, that's unbelievable. And the other guy went, what about the absence-based anxiety we got you in to help with? I thought, you've missed it. Yeah. You've missed it. And that was the light bulb moment of going, this can't just be about getting into a business and convincing somebody up here to buy this for their staff. This has got to be about every person that is working in that team and beyond, and the families and everybody else. And I started off with, do you know what? I want to save the world. And that was my opening line. And I thought, that's it.
Do you know, I mean, it's I'm taking a moment to kind of just think about that, process that, because, and this is the thing, isn't it? Despite what people say, I think for so many organisations, this is still lip service, isn't it?
Yeah.
And this is absolutely the problem, is that what we're dealing with, Pete, is ticking a box, ticking an HR box.
Yeah, absolutely.
And wonderful that you've got these 2 guys that sort of saw that, but then challenging that you didn't. And is that, this is a problem, isn't it?
Absolutely, it is. We were thrown into some of this stuff, and it's still a challenge now. We've adapted our model and changed our model and gone, right, this is often for a business, and certainly at this present time when people are putting this into the same category as the business that they need to keep afloat and the marketing budget that they need to consider and the last 18 months and all these kind of things. So we're now competing with everything else. The difficulty sometimes is as well that at the start of lockdown, people have bought into something because it was well-being, and whatever was stuck at the top of Google, sometimes people bought into. And effectively, they bought a pair of flip-flops to walk up a mountain. Yeah. They bought something within this sphere that might not have been correct for their staff. And I guess that's where the roast and toast thing came from. You know, we thought we need to get to a point where maybe asking the questions is what we need to do first, rather than assuming what the answers are. You know, often this funnel plan that a business might have, you know, you've got 100 members of staff that all funnel into minimal solutions. Our approach is, right, how do we take that one member of staff and funnel them into multiple solutions so that some of them can work, some of them can't work. That's okay, we can go back and try something else without it being something that the business has to invest thousands and thousands and thousands of pounds in, because a lot of these solutions actually exist elsewhere. People just need to know where they are.
Yeah. You mentioned it there, and where you were getting into the roast and toast. I mean, I want to talk about that, because I remember back to that early stage of pandemic, and being a freelancer, being someone who got contract work, not, you know, realizing not being protected by you know, things like the furlough and what have you. So it was something, you know, certainly through my mind, and I'd spoke to a few people about this, you know, how do we create an environment now, a virtual environment where, you know, you can come together and get support and get advice. Lo and behold, a few days later, roast and toast is at the door. And I mean, it was incredible. And as I looked, you know, I came into a few sessions, and just, well, you know, you've got to tell me the story, because sessions based on Oasis songs and Bruce Springsteen and movie titles by the Brat Park and all. You know, tell us all about it.
I think,
come as you are.
Yeah, come as you are. I mean, that was the tagline. It started, I mean, again, a lot of innovation starts by accident, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And that's what we've fallen on. But I think because we knew what we were trying to achieve, this thing that appeared actually has become our thing. So, like I said, we set the business up 2 weeks before a global pandemic, couldn't do the things that we set up to go and do. And after my own couple of weeks of meltdown, of this panic, going, what do we, you know, this wasn't just a business for me. This was a legacy for a mate. It was what I felt I was on the planet to do. And it departed as quickly as it had turned up. And, you know, all the stuff was going digital, and we wanted to be face-to-face. That's what we felt we needed to do. So we didn't want to just launch as a digital business. And then all these top 5 tips started appearing, you know, top 5 tips from working from home and all this. And I thought, do you know what? That's not relevant for me.
Yeah.
And if it's relevant on a Monday, it might not be relevant by Tuesday. Maybe people are going through the same stuff as me. What if we could just create a space where people could come and unpack this stuff? And very simply, I mean, none of this stuff I've done is complex, and I think that's probably the strength of it. Kind of stuck the marketing hat on and went, right, what helped me? Well, a beer or a coffee with a mate was really powerful. Roast and toast, that's where it came from. Roast of a coffee, toast of a beer. We're doing it at 9:30 on a Wednesday morning, so the beer route's probably not the best thing to do.
Yeah.
Let's just create this Zoom room where we can come with a brew, come as you are, and I'll just do this. I'll just tell my story. That was the plan. Week 1, it was literally, you know, it might last for 3 or 4 weeks. I'll invite anybody I know into this space. So I invited my mum and dad in, I invited mates in, I invited doctors that I'd met, well-being experts, all these people came in, and I just told my story. And we thought it'd last for 3 or 4 weeks. We did episode 72 this morning, I think.
Brilliant.
And what that story did was it gave license for other people to start telling their story. So all we do with these sessions, very, very simply, I mean, we talk about Mindsight with the swagger of the Gallagher brothers. It's well-being with the swagger of the Gallagher brothers, which people go, what? That don't work. But it's that little bit of going, you know, we've got to educate our heads around well-being. We need to know some stuff that's important, but if we only educate head, it's just a book on a shelf. There's a bit where your heart needs to switch on to say, I'm not doing okay, and to say to a mate, are you all right, and mean it. And it's that bit where Liam sticks a microphone out at Nebworth, 99% sure that, you know, that 250,000 are going to sing Wonderwall back, but there's a little bit where he's not quite. And that was our approach. You know, it wasn't a cocky thing, but it was a little bit of, if we are going to fix this, we're going to have to be a bit confident in it. And that's what happened with Roast and Toast. So we do topics every week around You know, it is music, it is films. You know, we did the first 12 where we led them a little bit more and we created breakout rooms so people can talk in smaller groups. People can come in without the screen on, because that's okay as well. You know, the Come As You Are title developed, and it's absolutely it. So the doctor that comes in doesn't lead with, I'm a doctor and my opinion is. He comes in as himself. And his opinion is as valuable as the graduate's opinion, is as valuable as the single mum's opinion, is as valuable as the person that came in on week 1 as the person that's coming on week 43. And what we've done by creating all these environments where people can talk and converse is that actually people's stories become the power. Because what you get in that, and we've hit some tough stuff on a Wednesday morning. We've covered domestic violence, we've covered suicide, we've covered a lot of tough stuff that's worked because it's come from a story of an individual.
Yeah, of course.
And I think the strength of it is that people don't necessarily relate to the circumstance, but they can relate to the journey from A to B, and they can relate that to their own stuff. And you find that with any story, you know, the more people share, the more it opens up for other people to share. So this thing has not just become kind of a space for well-being and mental health. Actually, it's grown people's confidence. You know, people are coming in going, this has saved me marriage, it's saved me business, it's like counselling. And it's one of those things that unless you've been in it, people find it very hard to describe what it is, but they can tell you how it makes you feel. I
find it incredibly interesting because when you think about, you know, you're in business in the county, you know, and you think about, you know, sometimes as well, they're not conversations that you always feel comfortable having with your mates. You know, you don't want to have, you know, perhaps you want the other person to know a little bit less about you, or you want to feel like the people are relatable to you, you know, if you're a business owner or a health person. So that's what I find really interesting. And I guess it almost feels like a hybrid. You know, you think about networking. Networking places are where you go, but actually, perhaps part of the destructive nature of networking is you put the front on. And you act as a character quite often. Then that's not the case here, is it?
No, not at all. And we took all the strengths of networking. You know, so you go into networking, you've got a community. You've got a community of people, you know, yes, it's from a sales perspective, but there's people in that room trying to help you to succeed. So we took that strength and went, actually, do you know what? This isn't about your business succeeding. This is about you succeeding. And, you know, our ultimate dream in this is we've got this thing where we'd love the apprentice to be able to walk into a business and have a conversation with the MD on a Monday morning and genuinely ask how the MD is. And that be an okay conversation. Why? Because it's nothing to do with the labels or titles they've got in the business, but actually they both support the same footy team, or they've both got the same interest. And where the last 18 months has been really successful in getting more people to talk about mental health, it's still sat on this pedestal over here. So we do everything else, we talk about everything else, and then we bring somebody in to talk for 2 hours about mental health or whatever it is. And I'm going, this needs to be, what was last night's tea? Let's talk about how we are, good, bad, or everything in the middle, and what's tomorrow night's football score is going to be. And that's our approach. That's where, you know, that's where the Adidas trainers come in. It's for the people on the street, in cafes, in bars, and all that kind of stuff, where this conversation needs to happen.
I find it incredibly interesting because yesterday the theme was health, but today it's social. But there is no reason, I think, when we think about Lancashire as a county, why Lancashire can't be the place that leads the way in making sure working cultures are much more like that they are much more sort of lower, kind of smaller layers of differentiation between the top and the bottom, and people do think that you can communicate really well. Just before we move on off that, she's not here today, but Andy, obviously you met Andy. What's Andy brought to the game with you, Rob? Because I know you worked together a lot.
I mean, again, I was introduced to Andy by a mutual friend, and this has just been about connection. The whole business has grown on connection of people saying, you need to meet, and that's all I said at the start of this. I can't save the world on my own. I just need to meet a lot of people and make this happen. And was introduced to Andy, and her background wasn't kind of mental health and well-being. That wasn't her thing. She'd worked with some big businesses, changing culture and shaping culture and developing teams and merging businesses together. And I went, that's different. actually that's the thing that we need to do. We can find all the people from a professional support point of view, because everybody can find them. All we need to do is make it more accessible. What we need to do is create this culture of care, this architecture model that we talk about, to help people to build an environment where this conversation can take place at the earlier level. You know how the person that you sit next to in work left on a Friday and how they come back in on a Monday. You have license to talk to them about anything because you know the family, you know the friends. You've got a conversation there that maybe the MD doesn't have, or maybe the HR director doesn't have. So for us, this was more about how do we make that the approach, rather than just training Barbara in HR to be a mental health first aider, which there's nothing wrong with. People should do that and it's important. But if it's only one person in the business that's suddenly taking the weight for the business, which is often the case, if Barbara's no relationship with the 40 blokes in manufacturing who've never spoken about mental health, then she just picked a book up off a shelf and it's going to be really difficult for her.
Yeah.
If we can get those individuals talking, then all of a sudden it's not escalating, and some of this stuff actually will get solved through conversation. Or at least if people are taking some professional care, they'll come back down and talk about it. If you can talk about your counselling, actually some of the stuff you learn at counselling can be helpful for other people. You don't necessarily need to go and see the counsellor for it. I'm just thinking, if we can create those environments where this is normal.
Yes.
And if it's not normal in work, let's not force it. Let's not put a square peg in a round hole, because actually you might go out running of a weekend, and that's the thing that sorts you out. You might knock 10 bells out with another fella on a rugby pitch on a Saturday afternoon, and that's good. These are all commodities and tools in your toolkit that help. Some will be in work, some won't be in work, but they'll all help you in the workplace to be more successful and better while you're there.
Yeah, I can see. I mean, I know Andy, the work she's done. I can see how she's an incredible conduit between what you've been building up until this point, and what she brings to the table. So it's quite incredible, really. And every time I see Andy now, and I see her bopping around and in Lancaster and what have you, she always says to me, she always reminds me, it starts with a conversation.
Yeah.
Start with a conversation, and it does, and it starts, and that's the kind of the thing, I guess, for the next year, and this is the thing that I think we're really particularly interested in terms of that innovation, is the 6 connections space.
Yeah.
Really keen to hear about this, because this is a really exciting sort of connection between tech and well-being. And again, if anyone's watching in, want to fire any questions into the Q&A to find out a bit more about this, then please do. But tell us about 6 Connections and what that is, because I think this is really exciting. Again,
it started with something. I mean, I'm probably the most ducks in a row person I've ever met. So the last 18 months has been a massive challenge for me, but I think the flexing of the last 18 months has grown me in a way that I didn't expect, and probably only a global pandemic could have done.
Yeah.
And we've just had to get creative with stuff. So we got to a stage where Roast and Toast was doing brilliant. People were coming to this thing and they were getting a lot of benefit from it. And we were starting to get the opportunity to go back into the workplace and start to deliver some of this stuff, absolute solution for what we're looking to do. World saved, great, we'll crack on. But as we started to go back into the workplace, there was so much uncertainty in the mix around finance and all these other things that actually we kind of came away and went, I'm not sure everybody's ready for this. Yeah, because there's still this space where people are trying to find the feet of being back in work, or being still on furlough, or having some staff on, and people not necessarily ready to commit to something because they didn't know what the landscape was going to look like. And the financial decisions came in, and we were having conversations with businesses who were saying, what you're doing is brilliant, we need it, our people need it, but we can't do it just yet. And I kind of sat back and went, not yet might be really serious. How do we get to those people that need this? Because we all needed it over the last 18 months in some way, shape or form, without the decision of 1 or 2 people that were pulling the purse strings. Because that's business. I understood that. That's absolutely how it works, but it wasn't right. So we've had this underlying thing as Mindsight all the way through around 6 degrees of separation, if you're familiar with that. So in short, anybody is connected to anybody on the planet in 6 conversations. I actually thought it was to do with Kevin Bacon films, to be honest, because it was every actor's 6 films away from Kevin Bacon, aren't they? So coming from Burnley, that's what I thought it was, but it's a real thing, and Microsoft have worked it out. So I loved this idea that you could help anybody on the planet in 6 conversations, and it sat so well with what we did. Separation sounded really negative, connection sounded really positive.
Yeah.
So it sat brilliant with the whole saving the world thing. Actually, we all can, but it felt a bit too big. So I thought, right, we need to bring this back down so it's tangible for everyone. So we went, right, actually, what if every conversation we have, whether it's roast and toast on a Wednesday or one of the other ones that we do, or it's a delivery in a workplace, or it's me and you having this conversation and the other people in the room, what if we encouraged everybody to go and have 6 conversations around either something we've said or around positive mental health and well-being, to turn around to mates and say, look, we might be doing okay now, but if we're not, I'm here for you, we'll do it together. And if you're not okay, you know, let's talk about it. And can I come and talk to you about it? So actually that works, because if we deliver this to 20 people on a Friday morning and they all go and speak to 6 mates in the pub on a Friday evening, we've reached 120 people without even trying. And if they go and reach 6 and they go and reach 6, that's the thing. So as we were developing Roast and Toast, we wanted to put it live. That was the ultimate. We wanted to put it into bars and coffee shops, because the strength of the come as you are on Zoom had to work live. So you had to be able to come and sit and just listen if you wanted to. So we started this conversation around venues, and in a conversation with a guy that had a bar that we were talking about, throwaway comment really that had just sat at the back of my head and said, I want to stick a wellbeing message on a can of beer. He said, you can't do that. It's not good for your mental health. I went, well, actually, do you know what? It was all right for mine, and it still is. That pint with a mate before football and putting the world to rights, or just saying to a mate, do you want to come out for a pint and unpacking some stuff? And being able to do that was really valuable as part of some of the stuff that I needed to get off my chest. And I thought, right, okay, that's a genuine reason. Let's stick it on a bag of coffee as well while we're at it, because that's also not good for your mental health, but the conversation's there. So that's really where 6 Connections developed from. We created this range of products linked to conversation. So we have teas, we have biscuits, we have coffee, we have the beers, which were great, but they're just a product.
Yeah.
It's like, right, how does this genuinely help somebody? I thought, right, how do we take the strength of Roast and Toast, where these stories from other people about how they've progressed and how they've connected and how they've, how we've solved problems as a room together? How do we create a digital platform for that? So we stuck a QR code on all the products. QR code goes to a website of help and support. So we've partnered with an organisation called Chasing the Stigma, who have an app that links through to professional support in your area. So you stick your postcode in, it brings up everything from housing to mental health. So we've got a one-click route if you are the person finding this site and you're struggling. But what we took as our approach was, what if we create something to help the mate that doesn't know how to start the conversation? What if we create this site where the mate can go and find out some hints and tips? My pal's gone really quiet, I don't know what to do. My pal's mentioned suicide in a text message. I'm not an expert, where do I start? So that's what we've created. We've created conversations of people that have got from A to B, whether that's professional care or with a friend or with a teacher or whatever it is. And we've put all these scenarios together to help people to get a quick QR contact, whether loudly or quietly. Your mate can nip off to the loo in the pub and you can scan the QR code, or you can talk about it. But we've put this tagline, real conversations, powered by mates, hence the t-shirt and all that kind of stuff, as the starter. Because this doesn't just have to be a conversation about mental health. It might just be a conversation that you've not spoken for a while. You just need to reach out. So it covers a multitude of bases, potentially before any issues start, because you're already talking about this stuff in an easy way, in a natural way that you would do anyhow.
It's just an incredible story about how that came around. Just the innovation of using the technology there, QR code being the critical point to support those people who perhaps don't know. And it's funny, as you were talking, it was describing, I was thinking of a situation I had recently with mates, and having had mental health challenges in the past, being a little bit more on top of them, realising actually I could just do with seeing a few mates at the moment. And went to see a couple of mates and I'd mentioned over text I was struggling a bit. And it was, you know, as mates do, and I could tell that they felt uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? There was just this little, and didn't quite know what to say. And it was fine, you know.
Yeah.
I kind of knew it, you know, you sort of half expect it, I think. I knew that they didn't know really how to address that conversation. Yeah. So you can see where having that prompt in really useful places would be great. Yeah. How do you make sure then that, let's just say, you know, it's person appropriate then, I guess, you know, how do I make sure that if I scan the QR code, I'm not going to something that's going to tell me about how to, you know, for homelessness. I mean, how would you make sure that it's the right thing for the right people?
So what we did initially on the site, again, this is the flexing and moving that's gone, because as soon as we do something, I go, it can be bigger, it can be better. And I think I might need to stop at some point. But what we looked at was we categorized the site. So you go into the site and you can pick stuff up on, you know, on anxiety, on sleep, on all those kind of things. That's the community that we're building. So it's still in the early stages of that. Because I mean, again, we only launched this back in June, really. So it's been quite new. So we built this up, and I thought we need to build a community of answers in the same way that we've done with Roast and Toast. So the next stage of what we're going to do is we're going to build these unique QR codes. So Youth Zone could have one, for example, that takes you to a unique landing page that's designed for supporting young people. It could sit on the construction site, it could sit in a football club, it could sit wherever it needs to be. But the strength of that is that those stories and those situations that help are linked specifically for that organisation, but they then pass into our community of care.
Right.
So actually the website that you've got, even though you might have your own individual QR code that can sit on the floor in a room, can sit on posters, can sit on other people's products, and we can do partnership products, has taken it beyond the products that we've got into effectively people building the solutions for other people and creating this community, this environment that we wanted to create in the first place, where the culture of people that have been through some stuff isn't saying that this will definitely work for you. It's saying, this is what I did and it helped me. It's an option. And that's where we sit, you know, as the non-experts in this. We want to provide people with options and places that they can go that will help them and the people around them.
I think it's just an incredible story, Dave. And I think where you've got to now in using technology against the mental health backdrop is just, it's fantastic. Tell us what's the future looking like then for Six Connections? Where do you go next?
Yeah, I think for me, what we've learned more than anything is that our success lies in building this community and starting the conversation.
Yeah.
So for me, if this message sits on more cans of beer in a supermarket, then more people are getting helped.
Great.
I don't want to go down the line of being a fulfillment business where we've just got a few little products that sit on our site, which is exactly what it is at the moment. We've researched them, are they great products, people would buy them. But actually the partnership element that's been so successful for us makes this work.
Yeah.
So if we can get this, you know, I'd rather do a partnership with a beer product who actually put this out as their beer and they're proud of it and the QR code sits in the background. I'd love to stick it into, you know, products and workwear and all those kind of things where this stuff just sits around in the normality and create those solutions with the people that want the solutions. Because, you know, it is tick box in many ways for businesses still. But I'm thinking if our tick box can actually have some power and help some people, great. You tick it as a business, I'm all right with that because it might help 100 people that can access this site. So ultimate dream, I'd love to see this in a bar where somebody behind the bar just pulls it on a hand pull and I've got there with the label and it's just sat and it's just part of normal society. That's the ultimate. But it's about partnership. There's a lot of people in this county. We've said we want to save the world, and I always said, I'll start in Burnley, I'll move to Lancashire, and then we'll take it further. If we can save Lancashire first, we're on a winner. But there's a lot of people out there, I think, that have the product that can make our story more powerful. And we've connected with everybody so far. We might as well carry on doing that. That's my theory.
Dave, it's incredible, and it's such an inspiring story. And I think, to sum up, I get the impression you've probably already saved a few people in Burnley, and probably a few more in Lancashire as well with what you've done. So, I mean, congratulations. It's just a fantastic story, and a perfect way, I think, to kick off today. So thank you. I really appreciate that.
Much appreciated.
So, guys, we're going to kick on from here. Now, we'll wrap this session up, and then next up, we've got, I think it's the Financing Innovation. So, we'll hopefully visit event.lancashireinnovationfestival.co.uk, get yourself registered onto the next session, and we'll speak to them. Okay, thanks very much.